It's talking about a bird which is found in the cracks of rocks. It's hidden between the rocks. And we see Hashem is telling the bird, show me what you look like and let me hear your voice. That's what Hashem tells this bird. Because your voice is beautiful and so is your appearance. So it's pasuk. Obviously, it seems very metaphoric, and there's a deeper meaning behind it. So if you look through the Mitachim, there's a lot of explanations. I found a Sefer Bnei Sachar. He explains, what does this mean? Hashem tells the bird, let me hear your voice and let me see your face. So he explains, he brings a midrash and he explains, what does this mean? He explains, kolech, the voice is a question of tefillah. Hashem says, let me hear your voice of tefillah. But when it comes to umarech naveh, and your appearance is beautiful, he says that has to do with learning Torah. He says, show me your face, and he says, umarech naveh betalmud Torah. It looks like it's something to do with Talmud Torah. And so he says, this midrash seems a bit hard to understand. What does that mean? So he explains, what does it mean? He explains that when a person learns Torah, he acquires something called or panim. Kavyachol hu harat or panim. His face begins to glow. So when Hashem says, Arieni et maraich, he's saying, to a certain extent, learn Torah. I want to see that glow on your face. Okay, still seems a bit bizarre to understand. So I found a Gemara that expresses basically the same idea. The Gemara is in Maseret Brachot. The Gemara goes like this. There's a story. There's a Rabbi Yochanan. People kept getting sick. And Rabbi Yochanan would go and you ask them, are you enjoying the Yisulin? Are you enjoying the pain that you're going through? And they would say, no, I'm not enjoying them. And basically, Rabbi Yochanan would heal them, he would pray for them, and they would get healed. So after a few stories like this, the Gemara comes to one story. It says Rabbi Yochanan came to a house of a big Rav, and he saw that the Rav was in a bevet afal. He was in a dark house. What does he do? The Gemara says, Galia le dare, he exposed his arm, v'nafal neora, and his arm lit up the room. He showed his arm lit up the room. So obviously, that needs to be explained. So the Ben Ish Chai in his book, Ben Yoyadai, explains what does this mean. He says right away, he says, En hadavar kipshuto. This is not like a regular thing. He lifted his arm and he glowed. Because it would make no sense. Ben Yoyadai explains that it's there's a different element going on here. He says, what is it? He says that a person who's a tzaddik, a person who attains high levels, gets something which I don't know what it means, but I'm just expressing the idea. He gets something called an or makif. He gets this light which resonates off of him. And he explains that this tzaddik Rabbi Yochanan wasn't that he resonated. It's not that he exposed a physical light. Is that when he exposed his arm, he exposed that he was the tzaddik and he had this or makif around him, exposing and it lit up the room. It doesn't mean that it physically lit up the room. It means that it lit up the room in a spiritual sense. That he showed how the spiritual level he attained, and that this spiritual level was expressed by the glow coming off of his body. So the idea I want to get to is this. My grandfather, Rabbi Moshe, my grandfather, as Papi as we call him, is a person who greatly influenced my life and I think the lives of my siblings. And the irony is we never even met him. He's a person that I was born, he was my sandak, and then 2 weeks later he passed away. So he's a person I never got to know. I don't even know what his voice sounds like. If you played a recording, I wouldn't even know that's his voice. I know little to nothing about him. Yet I know so much about him because he's a person who really molded my life. And what I mean by that was he had this glow which I felt growing up. This image that I have of him as being this man, this pious man, which I look up to growing up. I remember my bar mitzvah. I was reading the parasha, and again, I don't know if this has significance, but I was telling myself, he's right here, he's next to me, he's listening to me, he's present. I had this presence. And just to express to you more how this feels, a few years back, I started liking books, Jewish books. So I used to always look through our books. I found my grandfather had this old book that we got. We got this old book from him. And if you look at the front page, he has a stamp on it. You guys could see. The stamp says his name, and at the top, it has Ein Hey. Ein Hey. Ein Hey stands for Eved Hashem, not servant, slave of Hashem. That's the image I had of my grandfather growing up. I never knew him, but I open a book and I see that he describes himself as Eved Hashem. That's who my grandfather was. So when I see that, it obviously, it can mold a person. So I think the idea I want to share before Shavuot is, look how much a person that I never even met can influence your life in a positive way. So as we say in the Gemara, Kal Vachomer, all the more so, a person who's in your life, who's there, who's present, who you could see, who you could speak to, who you can hear, etc. So if a person I never met had such an influence, imagine the kind of influence we can have on each other. So it's a nice message. It's cute, but what does that have to do with Shavuot? So there's something interesting. Moroccans, I think we're all Moroccan here. Okay, whatever. Sfaradim in general. Sfaradim in general have a minhag to stand up by Kriyat Torah on Shavuot. We stand up by Seder Diberot. We sit down the whole year. We stand up by Seder Diberot. So I found Rav Vadia Yosef and his son. They say, no, we shouldn't do this. It's like you're showing that one line of Torah is more important than another line of Torah. You shouldn't pick and choose what you respect. And he even shows that the Rambam says, this is the Rambam 1,000 years ago. You shouldn't do it. It's a problem. It's not good, etc. You shouldn't stand up. But I found Rabbi Rav Mesas, alav shalom, who says it's a Moroccan minhag. We have to stand by the minhag, and we got to do it. And I guess from the image that was given to my grandfather, I'm pretty sure that he was big on minhagim as well. So we have to understand this minhag. So I want to understand this minhag and link it to the message I shared before about Matan Torah and the message of my grandfather. I found another Gemara in Brachot, which is something interesting. The Gemara comes in and tells you all of Torah, all the aspects of Torah, meaning the Chumash, the Mishnah, oral Torah, everything, Kabbalah, whatever you want. It was all given to Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai. Don't think that a little bit was given here and somebody else discovered something later. It was all given at Har Sinai. If you look, something interesting. The Gemara says one of the things Moshe Rabbeinu got was Luchot, the tablets. Another thing that Moshe Rabbeinu got was Mikra. Mikra is Chumash. So the question that gets asked is, why are Luchot different than Chumash? The Chumash has the Luchot in them. The 10 Commandments are in the Chumash. The 10 Commandments are just a piece of the Chumash that happened to be written on the tablets as well, but it's part of the Chumash. We read it on Shavuot, we read it Parashat Yitro, we read it Parashat Vayetchanan. Why is it a separate, what's going on? Why is the Gemara calling it a separate entity? So obviously there has to be something to Matan Torah like this. Something has to do with Matan Torah. So I found there's a Gemara in Maseret Eruvin that says, how was Torah given? So Torah was given like this. Hashem would speak to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu would speak to Aaron. Aaron would speak to his kids. And then his kids would speak to the Jewish people. In other words, that's how Torah was given, like that thing we have in the kitchen, the funnel. It was funneled outwards. Moshe to him, and then to him, and then to him. And eventually, the laws got to everybody. But there's one time that's not true. That's Matan Torah, when the Luchot were given, and the tablets are given. That's the only time in Jewish history where everyone together received the Torah at once. Everyone together, we were all at Matan Torah. It wasn't that I heard it from this guy and he heard it from that guy, although it all comes from the same source. But at Matan Torah, everyone received and heard the Torah in one shot all together. So I think we can explain like this. So why do Moroccans or Sfaradim, why do they stand up by the Luchot? Because although the Luchot is part of the Chumash, and although the Luchot is just any part of the Pasuk, but we see from the Gemara that Luchot is something different about them. What's different about the Luchot? Different is that when it came to the Luchot, we were mekabel the Luchot together. That's a time in Matan Torah where everyone receives the Torah together. Whereas in other places, we didn't receive it together. I received it from him, and he received it from him, and everyone received the Torah in a different sense. That still doesn't answer the questions. Why is it so much better to receive it together as opposed to receiving it individually? So the Mishnah in Avot says there's 48 ways to be koneh Torah, to acquire Torah. 48 ways that a person should, if you work on these characteristics, you'll attain Torah. One of them is here. Ohevet haberiot. You have to love your fellow. Literally means the fellow creation, but it means your fellow Jew. You have to love your fellow Jew. What does me loving my fellow Jew change to me acquiring Torah? So one of the Mefakshim on the spot, where Yerucham Leibowitz explains, he says something that it seems out of place. He says, you know what this means? This means that Matan Torah, because there was Ahavat al-Beriot, that's what the Pasuk says, Vaichan Sham Israel, and the Rashi explains, Ki'ish Echad Belev Echad. What does that mean? It means that Matan Torah, all the Jews loved each other. Because we loved each other, we became Ish Echad Belev Echad, we became one, and Hashem gave us the Torah. So you see, Ohevet HaBeriot means something very deep. Ohevet HaBeriot means when you love your fellow Jew, when you have influence on your fellow Jew, and when you inspire your fellow Jew, and when you give over to him and he gives over to you, what happens is you become Ke'ish Echad Belev Echad. When you give over, you become one. We all group in together to become one entity of the Jewish people. What happens? When you do that, that's when you're merit to be Mekabel Torah. All the other times, you have to hear it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from Moshe Rabbeinu. But when everyone is Ki'ish Echad Belev Echad, then we Mekabel Torah together as one. Aseret HaDiberot. So I think maybe you could say that this Moroccan minhag, which seems so weird, of standing up for Aseret HaDiberot, I think it might be commemorating that. At Aseret HaDiberot, it's different than the rest of the Torah. You're right, it's part of the Chumash. But at Aseret HaDiberot, we're doing something different. We're showing that we're being Mekabel Torah like we did back then. Ki'ish Echad Belev Echad. I love you and you love me. I'm Ohevet HaBeriot and you're Ohevet HaBeriot. And through doing that, we'll Mekabel Torah properly. So hopefully, Shavuot's coming up. Hopefully that we can, put into play this midah of Ohevet HaBeriot. And may these words of Torah be the Nishmat, my grandfather. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Hazak u'baruch.
Thank you.
Kol hakavod, and you're a natural.
Excellent.
And for your grandfather, Eved Hashem, first of all, it's beautiful to hear that, but it also stands for Alav Shalom. May his merit protect us all. Bezrat Hashem.
Amen.